Did any of you? Okay, great. There it goes.
Okay, I know one other person had emailed me, said they wouldn't be able to come and I can't find it now.
Pat Dorsey also had a reply that.
Yeah, that's who
an
it is.
auto reply.
Yeah, it's Pat Dorsey. So thank you for that. Okay, so let's go ahead and call the meeting to order and let's do roll call.
Okay, great. I'll start with the roll. Samantha Albert,
Present.
Christy Belton,
I'm here.
Commissioner Hillary Cooper, Pat Dorsey, absent.
Is excused.
Director McCombs,
Present.
Commissioner Jody Shattuck McNally,
Present.
Mark Morgan, Julie Stensel, and Sylvan White Skunk. So we actually just have 4 members at this time, and we need 5 for quorum. So it seems, at least for now, we won't be able to take any votes.
That's fine. So we'll move on from approval to the minutes and let's go on to let's honor, I'm going to do point of privilege as chair. I want to honor Daphne's time, and let's go ahead and get an update on the current legislation.
Thanks, Commissioner. And it looks like
Julie's here now, so we have 5, right?
Yes, we do now have quorum.
Okay, so we'll do minutes after Daphne. Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks, Commissioner. Good morning, everyone. We are at the final 30 days of the session. I think tomorrow marks 30 days left. Over 600 bills have been introduced. Several of those are still moving through the process. If you all have kind of engaged in a legislative session before, you know that the final days and weeks are very fast and furious. Things change on a dime and move very quickly through the process. So just a few updates for you all. Wanted to let you know that DNR's stream restoration legislation has been formally introduced as Senate Bill 270. This is one of our biggest priorities for this session. It sets out to create a clear legal path for stream restoration projects in the state. So the way that it does that is it kind of creates a definition of what constitutes minor restoration activities that doesn't have an impact on water rights. Those can kind of proceed without any real process requirements. And then projects that fall beyond the definition of what constitutes a minor restoration activity would have to follow noticing requirements, registration requirements, would have to provide a public comment period on the projects. And they are also subject to a numeric cap based off of the size of the structures and how much water can actually be pooled by a project. So we just got that introduced this week. It will be headed to its first committee hearing next Thursday. I understand that the Forest Health Council won't have an opportunity to take a position on it, but if you personally are interested in engaging, feel free to reach out to me.
Can the legislative committee recommend, even though we're not, can we just send a note to the full council saying we haven't discussed it, but is there any way that we can at least signal we recommend support, or is that appropriate?
So from my understanding of the committee charter, unless the full council has a chance to vote on supporting a bill, there's no way that the council can have an official stance. If you wanted, we could send a notice to the council to say that like the committee supports this bill, and invite people to take action as individual members if they wanted to share their support that way. If you guys have a different idea or want to explore a different option, I'm happy to look into that also.
Okay, then we can talk about that after Daphne's rest of your report. Thank you, Daphne.
Thank you. So some other updates, the long bill, which has all of the department budget requests in it, has passed both chambers. So with that, bills are finally starting to move through the process that have been waiting to go to the Appropriations Committee. All of that has to wait until after the long bill. So one of those is House Bill 1060, the State Forest Service tree nursery bill that is scheduled to go to appropriations on Monday. I think I've mentioned this earlier, but this is one that'll be competing for some relatively limited general fund dollars. So not entirely sure how much funding will end up being in that bill, but we'll be working with Matt on that. And Matt, we can touch base before Monday. And then same goes for Senate Bill 5, the Forest Health Council's priority bill. That one is scheduled to go to appropriations next Tuesday. I wanted to talk a little bit more about the differentiation between that one, Senate Bill 5, and House Bill 1246, the in-demand workforce, career workforce bill. Since we had talked a bit about that at our last meeting. I think I mentioned I'm not anticipating challenges for either bill to pass. As has been previously discussed, the $1 million in Senate Bill 5 for co-swap could be cut if it became an issue. But I think from my read, these are complementary bills. I view Senate Bill 5 as a really holistic workforce strategy bill, but that is exclusively focused on the forestry, wildfire-related side of workforce challenges. So as you all know, it creates the new workforce development program within the State Forest Service. It provides partial reimbursements for interns, provides funding for community college and undergraduate programs, helps to recruit educators. It has a component on promoting career opportunities, and then that $1 million for co-swap. So it, to me, has several unique components all geared towards and focused on forestry workforce challenges. And then the other one, House Bill 1246, that we talked about last time, as I mentioned, this one's being carried by the Speaker of the House, the Assistant Minority Leader in the House, so it has a really strong sponsor team. I view this one as kind of more of a generalist workforce strategy. It does create 2 new programs within community colleges, technical colleges, or local district colleges, but this one's really geared towards covering tuition, fees, books, materials for students that are pursuing credentials in industries that are listed in the bill. So everything from early childhood to law enforcement to forestry and firefighting to construction and nursing. And then some of that funding could also be used for student housing, transportation, food expenses. So there's really not any overlap that I see there with Senate Bill 5. I think I did mention that 1246 has an apprenticeship component to it, which could be viewed as overlapping the internship component in Senate Bill 5. However, I don't see duplication there because the apprenticeship program in 1246 is specifically for construction trades and building and related career opportunities there. So 1246 also has a specific call out to nursing programs. I would say that firefighting and forestry careers are not the primary focus of the bill. So because of that, I view the 2 of them as very complementary. That said, I will definitely keep in touch with the bill sponsors on both of these just to make sure that they don't anticipate any challenges with duplication. And if anything, I just wanted to mention that I think the more similar crossover is with House Bill 1018, the timber industry workforce bill. That one in Senate Bill 5, the distinction there is a little bit more difficult to draw. So I'm wondering if House Bill 1018 might actually face a more uphill battle than either Senate Bill 5 or House Bill 1246. Any thoughts or questions about that?
I'll have a quick one. Could you go back to that first statement you made, just so in case I like what you said about a holistic workforce, just so if I do get questions, I have that. I like how you said that, so that, because I have gotten questions about, they all seem alike, and I thought what you said was really well done, so.
Thanks. Yeah, I think I just said that the two bills are complementary, and Senate Bill 5 is that like holistic workforce strategy bill with those several different parts that I kind of ran through. Everything from internships to recruitment of educators to promotion of career opportunities. And then, 1246 is more focused on like the tuition, fees, apprenticeship programs in the construction trades and so on and so forth.
Wonderful. Thank you. That's helpful. I just wanted to, because people are like, there's all these bills. I'm like, yeah, no, there's unique. This one's unique. So.
Yeah. And unless there were questions about other bills, that's all I had on my list today. Several other bills are still waiting to go to appropriations. But there haven't been all that many forestry related bills that have been introduced as of late. So nothing really new to report to this group.
So do you feel that we could, we should try to be at the appropriations hearing and testify?
I would say probably not. It's quite uncommon for the Appropriations Committee to take testimony. It does happen, and it is an option. If you guys didn't have the opportunity to testify in the first committee of reference, then I would suggest that. But I think Commissioner Shattuck McNally, you were there testifying in that first committee, so I would say it's not necessary.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any questions? Mr. Morgan.
Oh, you're on mute.
We can't hear you, Mr. Morgan. You're on mute.
How about that? I'm sorry that I couldn't join you. I've been trying really hard here, but something wasn't working here. But anyway, I wanted to make sure on the updates on the bills, what's happening on the nursery bill.
That one is scheduled to go to the House Appropriations Committee on Monday. So it's finally advancing through the process.
Is it getting traction? Does it look good? Does it look bad? Is there some way that we can put our shoulder to the wheel here?
So I mentioned that one is going to be competing for some pretty limited general fund dollars. My understanding is that the legislature as a whole has about $30 million in general fund to play around with. And there are a lot of different bills competing for those dollars. So I am not entirely sure what is going to be appropriated next Monday to this bill. If the council is interested or individual members are interested, you could reach out to members of the House Appropriations Committee. I'm happy to link that committee in the chat so you all can see the members of that. And that's probably the most effective way to engage at this point until it moves to the full House.
Thank you.
You bet.
Commissioner, unfortunately, we can't hear you.
Now I need to unmute. Anybody else have any other questions? Okay, Courtney, you did such a phenomenal job. No one has any questions. You did very comprehensive and thorough. We appreciate it. And I'm sure it's going to be an interesting day. And next week looks to be even more interesting. So
it's a treat today. Both the Senate and House are observing Good Friday and are not at the Capitol. And for the House, it is the first day in, I believe, 20 days straight of work that they're getting a break. So, but yeah, my pleasure. And I'll see you all at our next meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, Daphne. Okay, let's back up a little bit. And I think we lost, is Christy the 970 number? So we still have quorum. Is that you, Christy?
Yes, it is.
Awesome, thank you. So I think we have enough to approve the minutes now, so let's go ahead and take care of that. Anybody have any additions or changes to the minutes? I'll welcome a motion to approve the minutes.
I would move to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Julie. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second.
Thanks, Samantha. I think I heard you first. So any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, we'll move on. So now on the agenda, I have that we need to just ask, we had some clarifying questions from last meeting, and I crafted this agenda right after our meeting last time. And so Courtney, can you share that question we had from last time, just to remind everyone, including myself, because I'm sure we've all had a pretty long week. So.
Yeah, of course. So Mr. Morgan had brought up this good question of how can the members of the committee engage with the press? And it seemed like there were sort of two different questions. One was a question of social license with this group. Like, how does the group feel about members speaking to the press, or like answering questions about what we're up to? And so I'm going to let the committee continue to answer that question about the social license. I had gotten clarification from our communications director about how he would prefer like interview requests that are directed to the council as opposed to you as your own experts. So I sent around an email sort of clarifying that if someone wants a statement from the council, that Chris Arend, our communications director, would rather it go through him, so that like Dan can put out the council statement or something like that. But if someone wants to talk to you, Mr. Morgan, or you, Jody, because you are experts in your own right, then please, go ahead and speak to the press, and you don't need to run that past us. So that's sort of the DNR perspective.
Thank you. And I did read that email, so appreciate you sending that out. That was a very well-crafted email. Mr. Morgan.
Yes, I appreciate that very much. The one thing that I was looking for that I wanted to be clear on is that I realize that we have the ability to comment on things not as the council in our own right, but I also was looking for the standpoint of a gentleman and gentlewoman's agreement on whether we wanted to speak with one voice on this as well. So that's the point I was trying to make, and the distinction I was trying to make last time. I didn't want to get at cross purposes with anybody, feeling that we were running our mouth without everybody kind of being in concert with it. So that was all I was asking for before. And I believe very strongly you have the right to do that in this country, but I also believe that if you're trying to build a coalition and get people to cooperate, you'd like to have everybody on the same page. That's what I was trying to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. And if I remember back from our conversation from 2 weeks ago, I feel like we all had signaled to you that we have that trust with you. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, anyone, but I think that we had signaled to you that I think we've built a really great rapport and trust here. And so I appreciate you at least bringing that up and having that conversation. And I hope that we continue to do that with our meetings. So I appreciate your integrity there, sir. So thank you.
To me, that's a two-way street. I'd like to see you folks, I'd like to see everybody in this group here reaching out and getting something done. I just think we got to be, oftentimes I see groups like this have really good intentions, but we've got to get some water out of the spout when we're all done. We got to get something done here and be effective. And sometimes it takes a lot of pushing and a lot of lobbying. And I want everybody to feel free to get after that and get it done. You never know when you get the opportunity. They show up at the strangest places.
Well said. Good point. So with that, anybody else want to have any other questions? I think that was the biggest question, right? And Courtney, and that was the only one we really had from last meeting.
Yeah, I think that was the only question. I do I do want us to come back to the question of, is it possible to support the stream restoration bill? Because there might be ways, to send out a survey. So I want to make sure that ends up back on the agenda, maybe a little later, because I'm willing and wanting to be creative to get what we need to get done.
So, so you're reading my mind, because that was my next statement is, how does everyone feel about the stream restoration bill? And I know Courtney has contacted us, my board and myself individually, and we're having staff review that in our Office of Emergency Management, who seem to be satisfied with their questions being answered. So how does this group feel about this? Have you had a chance to review the bill? Maybe we should have held Courtney a little longer just to see if she, but I wanted to honor that she had to break it to come up from air today. So how does everyone feel about that? Mr. Morgan.
I don't believe that I'm educated enough to comment right now. And if you could help give me the executive summary again right now as to what you feel the value of this would be, I would really like to hear it.
Well, I think for me, it's the ability to help have the flexibility and the ability to move through some restoration projects, but also have some guidelines for the bigger ones. So I'll let Courtney kind of share she probably has a more official high level thing. And then I can't speak on behalf of my board, but I do want to look for myself to be supporting it. But go ahead, Courtney.
I apologize. I actually don't have anything more to share than what Daphne did. I can invite Daphne back. I can just give her a chat and see if she's available to hop back on and tell us more about the bill.
Yeah, let's see if she would. And then I'll look through my emails and for what she sent, and so I can read some of that. But let's see if she can jump back on for a minute. I guess I should have had her hold there for a minute. I can read the fact sheet that I found while we're waiting, if that works. So this is, what did she send it? Senate bill, forgot what she said it was. This is not on this one, but it's got Senator Robert Simpson and Representative McCormick. And the summary is stream restoration projects are important tools in protecting water supplies, restoring habitat and recovering from drought, fire, or floods. Under existing water laws, certain stream restoration activities may be subject to administration by the Division of Water Resources, creating an uncertain or even impossible path for stream restoration projects to proceed. The Department of Natural Resources is seeking legislation that allows stream restoration activities to occur without undue burdens while protecting water users. So the background is healthy stream systems improve wildfire resilience, drought mitigation, flood safety, water quality, watershed health, and riparian and aquatic habitat. These shared benefits support local economies and working lands, protect public safety, and contribute to the environmental health and welfare. Over time, historic land use practices coupled with drought, fire, and climate change have degraded the natural function of Colorado streams, depriving water users and local communities of these critical environmental services. For decades, stream restoration has served as a valuable tool in reestablishing a stream's natural process, protecting water infrastructure, and improving stormwater and in-stream water quality. And stream restoration projects have helped to recover from mining disasters, catastrophic wildfires, and the 2013 floods. They also help to reduce treatment costs for wastewater dischargers, stormwater managers, while improving local economies that depend upon healthy rivers for recreation and tourism. The summary of the
Jody.
Oh, go ahead.
Jody,
Yeah.
Daphne was able to join, and she can only be here for a few more minutes. So
Okay,
maybe
sorry,
she can.
Daphne. I have
she
my
can speak
I just
for a
had-
moment.
I didn't see you. I was just pulled up the fact sheet you gave me. I was reading that, but go ahead. Thank you, Daphne. I was just getting to the I read the background one. So
Yeah, and so what can I help answer or walk through?
Mr. Morgan.
I guess what I'm curious is, if this is a good thing, what are the collateral effects of this, in the sense that, are we diverting resources from something else that is a good thing or a bad thing? Or are we, it sounds like we're trying to reduce levels of, I don't know what you want to call it, bureaucracy or whatever. Are we, I hear the streamlining part to accomplish these goals. I guess I'm positive with that if that is the case, but I'm trying to understand what effect this would have on other activities that we already do. Or other.
All right, I'll take a stab at your question and let me know if I'm not answering it. But this bill is providing clarity on the current legal ambiguity that these projects have to navigate, but it's not taking resources away from any other program, project. This is, we're still actually doing the fiscal analysis on the bill, but I anticipate it's going to be very low. We're not securing funding for the bill. It's really just providing that clear legal path.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? I'm sorry to interrupt. It's Christy Belton, and I'm on my phone, so I can't raise my hand.
Jody, you're on mute.
Thank you. Go ahead, Christy. Thank you.
Thank you. My first question on this would be, I'm a water rights owner, and is there language in here that talks about this being specifically related to stream restoration surrounding wildfires, or is this, or not? Is there any language about wildfires and that kind of restoration?
There is. That's definitely a part of the bill, but I will say that the scope is not limited to restoration projects following those natural disasters. Floods are another perfect example where these restoration projects are really needed. But generally speaking, there's a big scale of need for these projects across watersheds in the state. Just given years of streams being degraded from various land use practices and so on and so forth. But I will just mention, as a water rights owner, we've also been working with the Colorado Water Congress and several other water rights holders through that capacity, and have gotten a significant amount of feedback and are striking or attempting to strike that balance of making sure there's clarity in the law to allow these projects to occur to a meaningful degree, but also making sure there's really strong protections for water rights holders and that they have the ability to take action if they're concerned about a particular project. And so, Christy, I don't know if you were on earlier when I described this, but the bill's kind of it's broken down into two different parts. So there's minor stream restoration activities that don't cause any impact to water rights. And then projects that are outside of that definition of what is a minor activity would have to go through noticing requirements, provide public comment periods, register the project with the Division of Water Resources, and ultimately water rights holders would be able to challenge a project if they thought it was impacting their water rights. So we tried to make that really robust.
Thank you. Thank you. That helps.
You bet. Any final questions I can answer before I have to hop off? Hopefully. Sorry about my cat in the background.
Well, that's okay. I think if Samantha gave a thumbs up, you're good. Everyone's good. Okay. Daphne, and maybe Courtney, have we sent the fact sheet and stuff to this legislative council? Could we do that real quick, because they have the same information that I have?
Definitely.
And I was sent it as an individual commissioner, just because I'm gonna go and support this. So, and Daphne, and your email's on my list of things to do today. So.
Thanks, Jody. I will put the link to the fact sheet in the chat, but I can also send Courtney a PDF version as follow-up. Thank you.
Thank you, Daphne. Appreciate you coming back on. Okay. How does everyone feel about signaling our recommendation to support this bill? Any thoughts?
So this would go to the wider council, Courtney, as just a letter of, or a memo or a notice of support from this group to help?
Yeah. I think we could think
incentivize
of a few
participation.
options. One could just be, yeah, like a memo of our support or this committee's support. And I could explore what it would look like to take a vote via email if it was something as simple as would a council member vote to support this bill or not? And if we get a positive response, and I'm trying to remember, what number we need, but that could perhaps signal like an official council vote. So I would need to look into that a little bit more, like read the bylaws one more time. I don't know what you all think about that path, if that's something you're interested in, or if you feel more safe with just sending a memo that says that this committee might support the bill.
To Samantha's comment, as well as in the chat, as well as, I think on the face of it, certainly the State Forest Service is supportive in its sort of general wanting to support things that are important to the larger natural resource framework within government in the state. So, we want to be in alignment in that regard. So, and I don't think there's any really need or concern from us to have additional dialogue, but I do think that we want to be sensitive to sort of just pushing things through rather rapidly, even if it's opportune for the bill and for the department. So I wonder I think we're going to run into these from time to time where it's going to be like, hey, it'd be nice to have some rapid response and be able to signal some positive support. So maybe what I might recommend is as we send out the memo, or not the memo, but the fact sheet that DNR sent out, maybe we just couch it with, the committee had some great dialogue, and on the face of it, it's generally supportive of this bill moving forward and would encourage members to engage with the topic, and then, provide feedback in your individual roles. And if so, and if there's a desire to see us take more substantive action, to signal that back to this committee, maybe. It's kind of like we want to show our hand and our support and leverage the council's authority and its composition, but I think we also have to be thoughtful about being perceived as just sort of stamping things without a lot of dialogue.
No, you're exactly stating what I was thinking, that maybe at least we just send it out so the rest of the council knows about the bill and that they can dive in and we can show that we're going to dive in deeper. But, in general, we think this might be important to have reach out about individually. So I like that idea, and I'll try to remember all the things you said, but if this group supports that, we could at least get it out, the fact sheet, and that we had this conversation and we feel like this deserves some engagement on or something. So Mr. Morgan.
I think that was extremely well said, Director McCombs, and I think I agree with that totally. And I just feel like I've learned over the years in Colorado that water issues are the third rail or the kryptonite of the world, and we have to tread very, very carefully. I don't want to be non-supportive if this is something we can improve, but I feel like, me personally, I'm still far too ignorant of the fine points of this to make a decision, but I'd like to learn more so that if it is a good thing, we could be supportive. And I'm also understanding that sometimes, the old blacksmith strike when the iron is hot. If this is the opportunity, then we got to speed up doing our homework here. So I guess that's how I feel about it, me personally.
And it was just, I think the draft that I got just came out on the 28th, I believe. So it's pretty recent. So
Maybe just one more comment, Commissioner, that I just think we should seek feedback. Say, hey, we see that on the face of it, I think it's, we all support stream restoration, and we want to remove barriers to being able to move expeditiously in this time of water scarcity and challenges associated with water. But we're looking for feedback from the larger council on if we should facilitate an opportunity to have deeper dialogue and take a position in time to be relevant. And I think that's the ask. And if the council's like, meh, then so goes the stakeholder driven process. And yet folks may respond back, yeah, we'd like to take a position quickly. And then in the meantime, Courtney, you can suss out what the requirements are to do electronic voting and electronic consensus building, because we're going to need this. We can't pull this group together every time we want to take a position in real time. We have to, I think this is a great opportunity for us to figure out how to legally and appropriately pull the membership and take positions as we can. And then we could, then we're setting a track record that's positive as it relates to being fully engaged with everybody. And at the same time, we're building out the framework to be able to have rapid dialogue and take rapid positions.
Exactly. And that's exactly why I think I sought for us to have that conversation and take that back to the full council and ask them for changing that charter, that definition, so we had a little more flexibility. I think you're spot on. So Julie, thank you for being patient and your hand's raised.
No problem. Yeah, I echo what Director McCombs said. I'd like the opportunity to do more homework. And I think this is on its face and from Daphne's summary, this sounds like a bill that has some opportunity for us to get behind it. But to Mr. Morgan's point, I probably wasn't tracking this one until Daphne, put it out there. So need to do some homework, but would love to see if we can raise the awareness of the larger council. And I also think that, this concept of how can we be more nimble on the in-between so that we can act, particularly in the time of the legislative session. I welcome hearing what tools we have available to us to be more effective. I think that would be great. So thanks, Courtney, for anything you can do there.
I think this is a great chance for us to test our new charter, or new, what did we call it? Charter into the thing. It was to test this new charter to see how this works. We already sent that new memo out. I don't think we heard back one thing from anybody, right? But we did as asked, so that's great. I guess I feel like no response is good. So I guess so we could try this again with this and just signal. I think how I wish I had my recorder on, Director McCombs. You did such a great job of stating all that, but I took some notes. So do you all want to look at the memo before I send it out again? Because I think it'd be great to send it out quicker. And certainly, I didn't mean to feel like I was rushing you. I wanted to just spark the conversation about this bill because I do think it's relevant to our committee. And I agree with you, the devil's in the details. And I've already had it for a couple of days and sent it through my staff. So I've added an advantage that you haven't had. So I appreciate you guys. I mean, I'm always in your shoes like, whoa, I need to look at the language. So I encourage, I'm glad that you all we're all seem to be in consensus on this to kind of have a deeper dive. So is there, can I have a motion to craft a memo to the full council for Courtney to send out to incur that we're looking for feedback to facilitate input in time to be relevant to see if we need to signal support or engage on this bill during the legislative session.
I would
so
move.
Did that cover that, Mr. Director McCombs? Did I get that covered pretty well? Okay. Trying to copy your words. There's a motion. Is there a second?
I would second.
Great. Any further discussion? Okay. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Okay. Anybody opposed? Okay, the next question, do you want to see this? I could run it by Director McCombs and Courtney before we send it out, or does the full group want to see it before we send it out?
I think full group. This is Christy.
Okay. I'll try to get that crafted and done quickly and get back to the full group. Thank you, Christy, for your feedback.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so with that, any further discussion on that? Because I think we're trying to be honoring of time, especially on a holiday weekend. Just let Director McCombs give a forestry update. Anybody have any other questions or comments from the previous agenda items? Okay, Director McCombs.
All right. So this is it'll be the down and dirty version. So there's a lot going on. I want to signal a couple of really important things that are moving forward. One, I hope you saw the governor's announcement of the Furworm awards that went out, $15 million across multiple projects all across the state. So that was just a really positive thing to see the governor's office take on that announcement and take some ownership there. It's a good, just shows good alignment and support all the way up to the top. But on the flip side, the Community Wildfire Events Grant Program, which was stood up under the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, those awards were announced last week as well. Well, I guess 2 weeks ago. And Colorado sent up 33 projects and had one awarded. And there was a sizable amount of frustration from me, as well as a handful of other folks that worked really hard to coach communities to engage with this program. On the alternative, like 40 projects were awarded in California. And it just, there's a lot of consternation. So I want you to know that if that's in any way, shape, or form getting into your conversations with others, know that I'll be meeting with the Associate Deputy Chief for State and Private on later this afternoon to sort of at the Washington office in DC for the U.S. Forest Service to better understand how this occurred and how we can be more successful going forward. But I also want to let you know that we have some funding that we had set aside for community wildfire protection planning that we are going to try to push into some of these really good projects that were brought forward so that Colorado communities can still benefit from the hard work they put together or that they put into putting together the applications and getting themselves ready to receive. So look for that communication to come out here in the next couple of weeks. Our team is Dan Beveridge, the fire and fuel specialist, is looking through all of his applications to see what might be good for some of these HFEC dollars to just keep that momentum going and keep communities planning and implementing in their community wildfire protection planning processes. Another key thing I want to make you aware of is, has anyone heard the term Keystone Agreement? Ring any bells? Okay, so the U.S. Forest Service, in an effort to move a sizable amount of these Inflation Reduction Law and Bipartisan Infrastructure Law funds, is entering into what they're calling Keystone Agreements with, I think, which is like a play on Keystone Species or something, with major nonprofits across the country. And so the TNC, the Mule Deer Foundation, the National Wild Turkey Federation, and as well as our friends at the National Forest Foundation have all received we're talking tens of $1 million master stewardship agreements at the national level, and are in the early stages of trying to figure out how to push those funds out into communities. And I'm working closely with some of those key NGOs as well as forest supervisors across the Western Slope in particular. We know we've got huge investments already in place with the priority 10-year wildfire crisis priority landscapes, which is essentially the Front Range of Colorado, and incorporating most of the Arapahoe Roosevelt and Pike San Isabel national forests. And so really trying to bring some focus to those watersheds and those Western Slope landscapes that haven't benefited from an RMRI type or priority landscape type investment. So I'll keep this group informed, and maybe it certainly might need your help to sort of keep any momentum that we build moving forward to start planning and implementing at scale. Jackie Buchanan, the Deputy Regional Forester in Region 2, in a recent briefing, even talked about the concept of potentially expanding RMRI focal areas outside of the 2 existing in Colorado. So these are just great signals that, like the sort of like chugga, it takes a long time for billions of dollars to move their way through multiple systems. They're starting to hit that point where I think we can start getting really interested in thinking about innovations and ideas and opportunities to move things forward in different ways and at different scales. And so just be looking. I get that's all very nebulous, but it's just all sort of tied to just the agreements and relationships that are starting to form and come together. What else? Colorado Wildfire Risk Assessment is in the final stages of being updated and will be released later here, like May or June. That's the first update we've done in 5 years. And that'll be a critical new tool, not new, but a revamped tool for folks to assess their risk, for practitioners and mitigation specialists and county-based employees to assess risk and focus work. So we'll be doing a pretty sizable rollout with that in the near term. In addition to, as it relates to rolling out, we'll also be rolling out the campaign, the wildfire awareness campaign that was funded and directed by Senate Bill 007 in the last session. That campaign is going to be rolled out at the governor's wildfire briefing, which will be, I think, next week or the following week. And the campaign title is Live Wildfire Ready, Colorado. And so you're going to see a lot of like stuff. It's been a partnership between DFPC, the U.S. Forest Service, the State Forest Service, DNR, and the state fire chiefs have been developing this campaign. It's really trying to be hyper localized, creating a sort of an umbrella of messaging and branding, but really it's designed to provide a toolkit to local communities that they can adapt to their needs and try to sort of from a bottom up, top down, meet in the middle success story is hopefully we're hoping for. And we'll see, that might be a target for us in the summer to look at interim committee and others. If it's a success and it's something we want to move forward, we only have funding for 2 years, 23 and 24. There was funding in the governor's budget, the wildfire package, but it was struck during the budget process, the JBC process. And so that might be something we want to, we'll bring this as an agenda topic in May is my intent. I hope to have Teddy and the rest of the crew brief this, the full council on the campaign and figure out how they can plug in. But it might be, something if we get excited about and want to perpetuate it, that we might want to consider supporting and building some momentum around for funding in the out year. So that's probably enough for now. Any questions?
There's a lot happening.
There is, yeah. Mass Timber is another one that I want you to be aware of as well. So the Gates Family Foundation has convened a really high-powered group of folks to start and has invested some serious dollars to do some feasibility analysis as it relates to, considering Denver as a potential epicenter for mass timber construction, not just utilizing the immense restoration needs that we have in our forests, but looking at the impacts from rail connected forests all along the I-25 in 70, 80 and 10 corridors. And so that's moving forward. And there was one other one I thought you guys would find interesting. Biofuels. And so there's a company called Setnet Energy, which for the first time in my professional career, going back 20 years, is a biofuels generation technology that is a net energy and net water producer and can take almost any type of carbon-based entity and turn it into drop-in diesel, drop-in jet fuel, and hydrogen. And so they have multiple plants in Alabama and Mississippi. Dan Dallas from the Rio Grande National Forest went out, took some scientists out to verify, and the product that they didn't have access to the proprietary technology, but they were able to see like this went in and this came out, and this is what was generated, the byproduct. And so they have put an option in, or moving through the permitting process in Huerfano County, and just wanted folks to be aware that, and I think they're working with economic development, local and statewide. And so if this comes into fruition, this would just be one more building block in our utilization puzzle to continue to create opportunities to get to subsidize the reduction of fuels and the restoration of forests, and in particular on the Rio Grande, where we have millions of acres of dead spruce starting to fall over and create the same fuel conditions that generated the intensity and impacts from Cameron Peak and East Troublesome. So time is of the essence, and we're supporting it with funding and with focus. And if that thing comes into fruition and starts producing hydrogen, it nexuses really well with the governor's ambitions to be to see Colorado's hydrogen hub application awarded at DOE. So it's getting bananas, people, but we're having a lot of fun and trying to keep on top of it. That's it for reals.
And I can just say, I can't say much, but I can say that in Larimer County, we have been, I have been learning about lots of similar things. So anyway, I can't say much else. Mr. Morgan.
Yes, that was a lot of information, Director McCombs. So I will do my best here to keep it short and sweet. As I understand it, there were 40 applications and 1 award. on your,
I think it was 33 went up and 1 came down, Archuleta County.
who exactly decides that?
It's primarily driven by a committee focused in the Washington office of the U.S. Forest Service.
Okay. One thing that I have seen in the past, I don't know if this is true now, but oftentimes this is like private industry making a application for a business project to financing or banking. And one of the things that I see people go wrong with all the time is they don't really get or understand the rules that are going to be used, the criteria to grade it going in. And so you can't play in a game if you don't really know the rules. Is there any opportunity to up your scorecard by finding out exactly? I guess what I'm saying is, can we find out who made the decision? That's the first way I go about things. And then I find out where they're coming from, so we know what it takes to be successful in their game. Is there any opportunity there?
Yeah, that starts with that. Thanks for that question, Mark. And it starts with this conversation with senior staff in the Washington office today between state foresters in the Interior West and the chief's office, essentially, because as you can imagine, there was not just me, it was a lot of dissatisfaction across the country, the way these awards went out. To their credit, their argument is, or I mean, not an argument, but their defense, I should say, from some of the criticism is, they stuck to the criteria and they awarded those projects that hit all 3 bells and didn't didn't allow themselves to fall into sort of the even Steven model, where everybody gets something, but we're not necessarily funding the best work. So we're going to hear more about that today. But our dedication, our commitment here at the State Forest Service is to do a way deeper dive than just this conversation to ensure we are helping communities, being at the tip of the spear across 17 field offices across the state, ensuring that every community has an opportunity to put their best foot forward and compete in the next round, which there's plenty of money. There's $1 billion in this program, and they only doled out 180. So we'll have our shot, to my intent. And with some of the community wildfire resilience coordinators, these CWTP focused entities we're putting into the field, literally over the next couple of weeks, we hired one in each area of the U.S. State Forest Services organization, north, south, east, and west. They're going to be specifically focused on coaching and assisting communities to be more successful going forward.
Awesome information. Sometimes I'm gonna have to just remember to put record on when you give your reports. Like all of it. I do that with my county attorneys too. I've been talking to them almost every day this week, and I'm going to record that. Anyway, anybody else have any other things? Director McCombs, thanks for that fantastic update. And I want to honor everyone's time and Courtney's time, and I'll try to type that report out really quickly here so we can get that out. Anybody have anything else? Otherwise, we get it back onto our day. Great. I have a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second. Awesome. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, everybody, have a wonderful weekend, and thanks for your engagement. I think we had another fantastic discussion today, and I just really appreciate you all. So